welcome to Right Hearted with me, Stuart Wakefield, and I am very excited to be interviewing Carolynne Henry today. Carolynne is a voiceover artist who also edits and produces audiobooks. Carolynne, welcome to the show.
Hello.
So I am always, when I speak to writers, my first question is, okay, how did you get to this point? So for you, I've done some high-level stalking on your LinkedIn account. And yeah, I'm really interested to see, because it looks like your career took a bit of a turn. So how did you get to this point?
Yeah, so I did a bit. So I've always been into creative things. So I've always done acting, written a little bit of my own comedy sketches. Don't get too excited because I'm not a writer. But and I've done, I did theatre studies at university. I did sound engineering. So it's always been creative things that I've done. But I decided to start my own business back in 2010. And it was all about music then. So I was a singer in a band and I wrote my own music.
Okay.
And, it was all about the kind of creative stuff. But I wanted to have my own creative business. So I set up Glasgow Music Studios, which was a recording studio and a rehearsal studio. So I got all these rooms built and we ran music lessons and we did rehearsal sessions and recording and workshops and everything, you name it. All bells, all whistles. Wow. I took it all on. I had about 50 staff. It was just, quite stressful. So I decided after a decade of that I wanted to really not be focusing just on running a business, but I wanted to get more into actually doing the creative side, the stuff that I trained for, the stuff that I love doing. So I decided to sell my business, luckily, literally 3 months before COVID hit. So,
nice timing.
I know. Well, it wasn't all, it wasn't all great, but at least I managed to get rid of all the assets and stuff in my business before COVID really hit, because otherwise it would have been a real headache. I wanted to go back and do a 9-to-5 job with the big, get a flashy car sales job, and just completely different to working in the creative industries, and maybe do like my comedy on the side or that kind of music stuff on the side. So I started it off and I did my training down in Manchester selling coffee machines, and I worked for about 3 weeks, and then COVID struck and I was like, oh no. So I got made redundant. So I've got no job, no business, and I was like, what am I going to do? Stuck at home during the pandemic. So I thought, well, I've got my voice, I can sing, and I've got a trained voice, so that's one skill I've got, and I can also record as well. So I thought I'm going to put them together and try and start narration and just start my own thing again. And I was just so much happier. I didn't like doing the 9-to-5 working for someone else. It just wasn't good for my soul. So that's what I did.
I absolutely agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And so though it's quite starting my own,
Right.
That's what.
And has it been kind of a big investment for you? I'm assuming you mainly work from home now.
Yeah, so I did have to buy my own studio pod. It maybe wasn't quite as scary for me because I'd already put a huge amount of money to a big, studio in town that I had 3 recording suites and I had 5 rehearsal rooms. I'd really spent a lot of money on that. So getting the one booth didn't seem as big a deal. So yeah, I've got a cube isolation booth in the house, which is brilliant. Makes a huge difference because I was trying to do it before.
Okay, is that the one that literally looks like a bit like a phone booth, or is that the one that kind of goes over your shoulders? Because I've seen a bizarre one that's like a stand that basically clamps your head in.
Well, I have got the stand that clamps your head in. Sounds terrific, isn't it? That's a bit of a coffee job, I think, than the clamp. Full time like this, stuck in a box. So I started with that, and that was okay. But things like, you'd be recording an audiobook and someone would start cutting the lawn, and you're like, oh, that's me for another hour. I need to wait until they finish. So then after that, I bought the cube, which is actually like a little room, more like a telephone booth, as you say, but a bit bigger. Mine's a bit bigger than that. And you go in and you just close the door and you stand in there. But I've also put the box with the clamp thing for your head in the booth, so it's extra soundproofed.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think you can never have too much soundproofing, to get it sounding really upfront and head sounding. So that's what I've done.
So
But I
I'm
might take
assuming you're
that.
not claustrophobic.
Not really, no. I mean, I don't think I'd like it if I couldn't get the door open.
Right. I can't get away from this terrible book. And how are you finding this kind of paradigm shift from, music studio to marketing to voice narration?
I love it.
Yeah.
It's so much nicer. I like working for myself. I like doing my own hours. I like that I'm doing creative stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to sit in the studio and all the people come in to do lessons or record their own music, or even we did audiobooks at the studio and stuff as well.
Okay.
And I was really envious because I was like, I'm stuck here running the business, but I want to actually be the person that's doing the creative stuff. So it just feels much more me.
Okay, good. That's half the battle, really, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So you've worked on some quite diverse stuff as well. So you've done that adorable Basset Hound in the Harringtons ad.
Yes.
Yeah. You've been quite an incredible video game character. Is it Frida Buckshot?
Yes.
Angel Heart in the Dwarfine video game. Are there any particular? Yeah. Do you approach those things differently?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, because it's a wee bit different being a kind of West End of Glasgow posh Basset Hound dog to being a big, massive warrior woman.
Right.
But so I kind of what I try and do is I like to visualize things. So I actually draw the character that I'm going to be.
Okay.
I actually do a sketch. I mean, just a rough kind of sketch, so I can visualize the character, and I'll write all the different little points about them. Their age, tone of voice, all different information, and then I've got a big picture in front of me, and then I can almost, when I go into the booth, I can almost visualize that person so that it comes to life.
Okay.
So I would do that for different ones. But with the computer game that I did, I actually got a picture, which was really useful. I got the actual visual of Angel Heart. I can't say the full name, I've got it now. And I can really kind of get into it. So that's how I approach it. Or another way I'll do it sometimes if I'm doing characters for audiobooks, if I've got the instructions of what, or the kind of background about the character and their motivations, I'll maybe then try and think of someone I know that is similar to that character.
Ooh, okay.
And I've got that voice, and then I can kind of channel into them. Because you're going between characters with audiobooks quite quickly. So, I think, well, that's Keith down the road that I know. I know it sounds strange, but it just quickly...
No, not at all.
And even changing the shape of your mouth when you're doing different characters, if you're more holding it back, doing different shapes and stuff like that. I've just...
So is that something you had to learn if your background is more singing?
Yes, I did a wee bit of coaching online for that kind of stuff, for the more kind of voice coaching. But then the singing's brilliant. It comes in because it's all to do with your breathing, phrasing, timing, smiling to sharpen it up,
Yes.
Doing the opposite to bring it down. There's lots of things I've taken from my singing background and put it into the voiceover as well.
Okay.
I find it fascinating.
I used to be in the choir at work, and they always used to say, if you want to stay on pitch, smile.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
And even the vowel sounds, bringing your vowels forward, or you can put them back depending on the different accents, which I learned from singing as well. If you sing Italian, you bring it very far forward. French is very far back, more like that. I don't know, just all the tricks I've just tried to pull in and all the knowledge I've known and bring it together.
Good. So you and I, sort of met. I mean, today is the first time we're really meeting.
I know, it's nice.
So the first time, I heard your voice. It was actually, it wasn't even an audition, but I had my short story Goodman's Child made into an audiobook, and I used a company called Findaway Voices. And what I liked about them more than ACX is you don't really have any kind of control about who you're getting from ACX. So anybody can audition for you. Whereas what I noticed is Findaway Voices kind of did that sort of pre-screening. So I think I had about 5 or 6 people put towards me, and obviously you were one of them. And for me, it was a no-brainer. I mean, you had exactly the voice that I was looking for my story. And then obviously you were able to do the audition. And I mean, how are you finding working with those kind of companies compared to sort of being sort of approached directly by an author?
Yeah, I do a bit of both because I had my studios before. Luckily, I've got quite a few contacts there. I find that's good because once I meet people, once I've set up that kind of working relationship with people, I seem to get a lot more repeat business by doing it kind of more organically and knowing the people as such, or directly contacting them through ECX and various platforms. It's good to get you started, but it's maybe not as regular work.
Okay.
But then again, I've done jobs on different platforms, Mandy.com and stuff, and then I've done more things. I've built that relationship. So both are good. I think you need to have both in the mix for voiceover stuff. You need to have direct contacts, and you need to have some pay-to-play platforms, as you would call them.
Yeah, and I think there is definitely something in there about kind of building up those business relationships, because I think once somebody trusts you as well as sort of seeing your work, then as you say, they're more likely to give you that repeat business. So when you're I think, again, particularly about Findaway Voices, I think for ACX, people are kind of pitching to you, whereas Findaway Voices, so how much control do you have? Did Findaway Voices suggest you to me without you knowing?
Yes, they must. Yeah, because I just got an email to say you've been selected for an audition, or you've been shortlisted for an audition.
Right.
And that's all I knew.
Okay.
That was the first I knew of it.
So say it was some subject matter that you felt uncomfortable with. At what point do you get to turn it down, if at all?
I think you set, because you get a contract, so you can accept the contract, or you can say you don't want to do the contract. So, that would be the point that you would say, no, I don't, I don't feel comfortable doing that content kind of thing.
Okay. And are you finding there's much of a difference in kind of terms of quality that you're getting from, a traditional or a traditionally published author compared to a self-published author?
No, I would say it greatly varies. I mean, it depends on the genre. It depends on if it's fiction or non-fiction. I wouldn't say that published books are necessarily, or traditionally published books are necessarily any different to self-published. I would actually say I prefer doing the self-published books because you can talk directly with the authors. You can get a bit back. You can feel their kind of passion for the book and the subject. You can ask them more about the characters. And I don't know, for me, when I kind of know the person that's written the book, or I kind of speak to them, the book kind of almost comes alive a wee bit more for me, rather than just taking a book from a publisher and there you go. I don't know. I prefer to kind of know the person, and then I'm like, I'm doing this book for that person, and that's what it meant to them, and that's what they're, you get that kind of two-way communication.
Exactly. I mean, I was lucky because you got my book sort of right first time, so we didn't have any kind of toing and froing. But I remember filling in production notes, giving you a bit of background on each character. And for me, you played a middle-aged man, a woman in her late 20s, and a child who was about 7 or 8. So, I mean, you were able to, switch between those. I felt, kind of very quickly. So I'm hoping that was a relatively straightforward job because we didn't have that kind of like sort of to and froing. I think it's interesting what you say about working with writers. Conscious that you've done some ad work, some video game work, and the audio narration. How do those contacts with writers work? Do you feel they're slightly different depending on which sort of project you're on?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think doing a commercial is very, very different to doing an audiobook and doing a computer game. So I kind of had to think about that actually. And I don't know, the analogy I've got, right, is it's like running a race. So if you're doing an audiobook, I mean, yours was a bit different because it was a shorter story, wasn't it?
Yes.
Whereas
Yeah.
if you're doing a big audiobook, I would describe that as a marathon. So it's slow paced,
Yeah.
you've got a lot of audio, you're spending a good 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks on it by the time you've edited it and produced it all.
Yeah.
And there's no visual, like there's nothing to get in. I mean, you've got to draw the person, as I was talking about, in your head and bring them to life. There's no visual to support that. Whereas something like a computer game, you're doing short clips of audio.
Okay.
You've got a visual. You've got to fit to that visual, so it's less free almost.
Yeah.
And I would call that like your kind of 1,000-meter race. So it's kind of a little bit longer. You're doing things like, being killed sounds and, all these kind of things. It's quite exhausting to do that in the booth. You've got to do 40 takes of dying. There's only so many ways you can change that. That's very different. And then you've got the TV commercial, or whatever, radio, TV commercials or online commercials, which are really short. That's like your 100-meter sprint.
Yes.
You get paid the most for it, but it's and you've got to do like a 10-second ad, or 20-second or 30, and it's got to fit to that. It's quite rigid, compared to the audiobooks. I think it's a bit freer. I don't know if I explained that properly, did I?
Yeah. I mean, certainly, I think Find Away Voices, they said that my audiobook would be about 45 minutes. And I think it came in about sort of 35, 37. So it's definitely not an exact science, is it?
No, it can just depend on the genre, how quickly you're speaking in different parts. I mean, I was aware that you'd said about your book you wanted it to start quite slow and then to get faster in pace towards the end. So maybe I sped it up a bit, in which case, which I've never done before actually, to get the speed up. In a book, I usually just would do it kind of the same pace, depending on what it is, I guess. But maybe that's why it was a little bit shorter. I'm not sure. It's not exact science.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I mean, certainly in my story, Moira, who is an abused woman, she's getting closer and closer to her escape by the end of it. So for me, the pace was she's getting more and more frantic because her escape is so close and she's been waiting for so long. Okay, good. I mean, I find that really interesting.
I mean, I'm not meaning to... I do think you wrote that book really well, because I could feel that when I was reading it. So I think you've got to be a good writer in order for the narrator to get the most out of it and bring it forward. So it's what's the word? I don't know what the word is for it. It reflects well on you. You wrote it well, I think, which makes a big difference as well, because I could feel that, and I kind of tried to imagine myself in that position and how you could feel that desperation of getting away, and I was trying to kind of portray that in my voice as well.
Okay. Well, I mean, it was beautiful. I'm so pleased with it.
Good.
As an aside, I hope you never get into that situation, because I felt really bad for that woman.
Thank God I'm not in that position, but I could visualise it. I could see her on the cliff, like with the water below, and I don't know, I could just see it all in the back garden. And, horrible.
Poor thing. So what do you find if you're working, I think particularly on an audiobook, and you're going back to the author, do you find, apart from, character and all that kind of stuff, particularly with, prose and dialogue, what do you find yourself going back for, like, similar things? Are there, I guess what I'm getting at is how could a writer make narration easier for a narrator?
To make it easier, I think there's a few things. Having the he said, she said in front of dialogue, so because if you've got a big page of stuff and you're just reading through, sometimes if it just comes up with the dialogue of the character, you don't know which character it is. So it's good to have the he said, she said, so that when you span over it, you know who's saying what kind of thing. That's very helpful. Pronunciations of places and names are also really good. That's something that has kind of held me back. Or sometimes if I've done a book and they've given me the names, if it was Gaelic or stuff, because I do quite a few Scottish Gaelic novels and romantic history novels and all that stuff.
Right.
And it's good to have the names in Gaelic and know the phonetics of that. So that's helpful. Okay. For non-fiction books as well, if there's visuals like diagrams, charts, that kind of thing that would be in a print book, it's good to have maybe an accompanying PDF, that they can refer to, and to have that in the copy. Because often you'll be reading a book and it's like, as you can see in the diagram below, and it's like, oh, no one's seeing a diagram. So a wee bit of adaptation needs to be done if you're going to kind of convert your book to audiobook. What else? And then just as much detail as possible about the characters and their kind of their background and what their motives are. That kind of like a character sheet of visuals. For me personally, I find that really useful as well.
Okay, because in my head, so I've listened to, obviously, a few different audiobooks. So some are presented more as like a dramatized sort of radio drama. So in the back of my head, when I was editing Goodman's Child for you to narrate, I took out some he said, she said, because my logic was, if you're doing the voices, then the listener should be able to differentiate who is who. Would you want to say he said, she said, if you're doing very distinctive accents?
Yeah, that's true. Maybe it would be more having it as a guidance, having it as certain brackets or, something in italics or something, so that the narrator knows if it's an audiobook script.
Yes.
Maybe it's a different version to the print one, and it is just a guidance. That might be helpful. I know what you mean, because you want the flow of the dialogue and the interactions, don't you, rather than
have you ever been in a situation where you're working with other narrators, so you're in that kind of radio play environment?
Not yet. No, I did do an audition to do a podcast play, but unfortunately, I think, to be honest, my voice sounded a bit older than than the character they wanted, but they really liked me. So hopefully I'll maybe do another character with him. So I've not done that yet, no. I've done things like radio. I've done like student radio, and I've done back and forth. That's it, kind of more broadcasting stuff, but I've not actually done character acting, as a podcast or a radio drama yet.
Okay.
But if anyone wants to get me involved,
yeah, open for business.
Open for business.
What do you think about authors narrating their own books?
I think it's really good. I think they get the feeling across. I think listeners connect, just as well with an author if it's their own story. On a practical point of view, just from my own experience of it, because I edit a lot of books as well, so I'm not narrating the book, I'll just get the book to edit it. So I've worked with Penguin and HarperCollins and lots of different books. And I would say that maybe practically they're maybe not as used to being in the studio, and maybe not as used to doing the different takes, or it'll take longer. It'll take much longer because they'll do a number of takes of it. So it probably will cost you more in a studio to do it yourself. But no, I think I'm all for it. I think if people want to narrate their own books and they feel comfortable doing it, I think it can sound really good.
How do they know if they've got a suitable voice, though?
Well, are you talking about people that are producing the book themselves, like self-producing?
Yeah, if they're I don't know if they call it self-narration, I guess.
Yeah, well, you could simply just record yourself on your phone, have a listen back and see, find a friend who can be, give you positive feedback or positive critical, you know what I mean? Give you some feedback on it.
Okay.
Or if they want to
because I'm yet to find somebody who doesn't think, oh my God, is that what I really sound like?
Yeah, maybe there's two different types of people. There's narrators and there's writers.
I mean, even doing this podcast, I thought I had a high-pitched kind of girly voice. And when I listen to myself back, I'm like, I am softly spoken, but I've got this weird husky thing that I didn't realize that I had. And I don't know if that's just age, and I haven't listened to my voice back for, I gave up acting in 2003. So I haven't probably heard my voice back. So yeah, it's a bit strange. So when you first, but I guess you haven't had that, have you? Because you've been singing, so you're used to listening.
I don't love the sound of my voice, but I have been used to listening back. Recording albums in the band and listening back, and all you can hear is your voice on the thing when they're mixing it and that kind of stuff. And I think just from being really young, I've always sang and even recorded myself in a wee tape when I was wee. I've just loved doing it since I can remember. So maybe it's not. And my grandpa was a man on the radio. He was known as a man of 100 voices. So it's kind of in the family. Yeah, he used to do radio, like BBC Radio 1 in Scotland. We're talking a long time ago, like a long, long time ago, because I'm the baby of my family, see. So
okay,
he'd be well over 100 by now. But before TV was really out, he was on the radio doing kids' stories every day on Children's Hour. So I think it's just always been, I don't know, in my family, in my blood, just to do it. It just feels normal.
What was your granddad's name?
His name was Willie Joss.
Willie Joss. I'm going to have to Google him after this.
Tammy Troot was the stories that he did by Lavinia Derwent.
Okay.
Because it was quite big. I think back in the day, it was, quite a big thing. The kids would tune into the radio, like the wireless, as we would call it, for the Children's Hour. They would listen every day, and that was the stories that he did. So everyone over the age of about 85 knows who he is.
So voiceover's in your DNA?
I think so. I think maybe it's just, I just feel quite comfortable doing it. So
good. So in terms of, share reels, people listening to what you can do, how can they sort of find you online?
Yeah, so you can find me online on my website. So it's carolynnehenryvoiceovers.co.uk. Or you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn under Carolynne Henry Voiceovers. Or you can drop me an email if you want as well. Some inquiries at carolynnehenryvoiceover.co.uk. And if there's anyone that wants to work with me on any books, or if I can help them with anything, then I'd be delighted to hear from them.
Okay, fantastic. I was talking. Listen, nothing wrong with that. I'm all about it. I know I'm meant to be interviewing other people, but I mention my books all the time, just hoping it comes subliminally. Yeah,
I know. You need to get a wee thing that's one on the screen.
Yeah, available now. Now, I was talking to another voiceover artist the other day who actually she's a writer. Actually, she's an actress and a singer, but more like theatre. But she happens to write on the side. And she was saying to me that she gets a lot of her work, and it seems to be very active on Twitter. Are you having the same experience?
No, I found that LinkedIn's been really good for me. I don't know, is she in England or Scotland or
in England?
In England, maybe it's a little bit different. I don't know, but I've been contacting a lot of kind of Scottish companies through LinkedIn, and I've had quite a lot of leads from there. Okay. But I will try Twitter. I'll write it down.
So it sounds like the best way to get to you for the. That sounds a bit stalkery, doesn't it? So the best way to contact you is on your website and probably on LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely. Or an email's fine as well for me. Yeah, that's brilliant.
And fantastic. And then just a reminder for the listeners and viewers, it's audiobook narration, ads, video games, but you can also do production and all the editing as well.
I can do production and editing, and I also do a wee bit of corporate as well. So presentations, voiceover for presentations or kind of animation stuff as well.
Fantastic.
Do a wee bit of everything.
Good. Good. Well, listen,
love
all
it
of
all.
those different angles, puts food on the table, doesn't it? So
Yeah, and it keeps it interesting as well. 'Cause
yeah,
you're doing, one day you do a bit of your audiobook, you'll be editing a book, and then you'll go in, this week I've got an advert I can't say because I have to sign all these secret things
yes,
to, these NDAs, non-disclosure things or whatever. So I've got an advert this week, which is a bit different again because it's the producer will actually do a live directed session.
okay,
So you've got them there as you're reading it. So that's a little bit more pressured. I forgot about that when I was comparing the different types with audiobook and stuff. I prefer audiobook probably because you can just get on with it yourself and really get in the zone.
yeah.
Whereas the ads, you've got someone kind of directing you. But
Yes.
it's all different. It's all good. So
And I think it's important, when you're working in that creative field, that you have all those different sorts of projects.
yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
And also tour guides. We've done quite a lot with, like kind of tour guides of Holyrood Palace and the V&A in Dundee, and there's quite a lot of things around that as well for kind of
And
touring
then do you
attraction.
find your projects kind of feed into each other, if you see what I mean? I guess in terms of, you have this experience on one project and it affects the way that you might approach another one.
100%, yeah. I mean, doing the editing has really been a huge learning curve for me because I've just learned how to edit, how to get it sounding good, and it makes such a difference, I think, when you do an edition. So definitely there's an overlap of the skills, 100%,
Okay.
which is good. So as I say, I've only been really doing this full time for a year, so I feel I've learned a lot, in the
Yes.
time. It's
I
been
feel
brilliant.
under pressure now to get the editing right.
You do editing? Have you done a bit of editing as well?
No.
Oh, do you mean
So
editing the copy, or do you mean editing the sound?
editing this.
Oh,
I mean, to be fair, the great thing about this Zencaster tool that I'm using is I can hit a post-production button and it sorts out all the leveling and gets rid of some of the background noise and stuff. I think for me, it's editing out like pauses and stuff if there are any. Just trying to, because I was listening to one of the podcasts back, and it sounds like for me it was thinking time,
mm-hmm.
but as a listener, it was like 3-4 seconds, and you do as a listener, you start to think, "Is this finished?" So, it's definitely
But then with a
not.
podcast, it can be a little bit more free, and less edited. Whereas an audiobook or a commercial or something, you've got to be really, there's no breaths. It's all really quite, But I think podcasts can be a little bit more relaxed because it is a bit more chat, isn't it? And a bit more informal.
Yeah. Good. That lets me off the hook.
I know I sometimes leave pauses. I've just done a book and it was poetry and things, and I wanted to leave a dramatic pause,
right?
But it was really when we were talking, it was almost. I got told off. I had to pull it in a bit, but I was leaving it that.
I was reading. Yeah, I was reading a book the other day. It was really interestingly done because one of the characters is so angry with one of the others that she can't speak. And what the author did is they left 3 blank pages in the book.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, that really works.
Uh-huh.
How you would do a narration on that, I've got no idea. Well, listen,
well,
Carolynne,
you get paid for finished hours. That would be free money, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, charge by the page. Listen, Carolynne, it's been...
I just want to
So, Carolynne, it's been an absolute joy to not only meet you, but to talk to you as well. So, thank you for coming on. And yes,
thanks for having me. It was great.
Yeah, good. And if you're listening or watching and you love Carolynne's voice as much as I do, please do get in touch.